everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am making a stationery set for Mother's Day. This one has a lot of layers. I chose the larger image in this particular Altenew stamp set, but there is a smaller image that has fewer layers on it. So if you needed to kind of cut down on the time it was taking, that is an option. Or just choose a flower that has fewer layers, or don't use all of the layers. First things first, this is how I've actually been boxing these up. This is a box from clearbags.com, and I just made it to where it was big enough to hold all of the envelopes and all of the actual stationery itself. I've already taken 8.5 by 11 sheets of cardstock, cut it down at the 5.5, so it's 5.5 by 8.5. And I went ahead and scored them at 4.25, and I went ahead and stamped my logo on the back of all of those. For those envelopes, I used a Hampton Art stamp set. It is, let me find it for you, SC1013. The main image for today's project is coming from this Altenew ROSA GALLICA. This is a stamp, die, and stencil combo, and what you see there is just kind of my plans. I took some advice from Jennifer McGuire, and when I have inspiration or an idea that I want to use, that I want to do using a particular product, I just stick a piece of paper on there with my idea. So one of the things that I love about Altenew's stamp sets is that they always come with an inspiration guide. So not only does this give you inspiration, it gives you instructions as well. So that is for the smaller image. This is for the one that I'm using today on this right hand side. There's 4 stencils that go with this particular image. The other one only had 2. So again, if you wanted to kind of cut down on the time it takes to fill all of this in, go with a smaller image. But I wanted this one because I wanted it to span further across the bottom of this little stationery set. They color coordinate everything, and they give you color inspiration and color choices. And I decided that I really liked this particular image. And I think she will too. And so I went with their color choices. I decided not to reinvent the wheel. And that was just a bigger image, kind of showing you a little closer up what this looks like when it's all done, which I think is a very beautiful, beautiful image. So I have a whole bunch of Altenew inks here. You could definitely mix and match. You don't have to use Altenew inks with the Altenew stamp sets, but I decided I would keep it simple and, like I said, not reinvent the wheel. So the inks I have here are Pink Diamond, Pinkalicious, Razzleberry, Orange Cream, Minty Mint, Sweet Leaf, Lagoon, and Hydrangea. And I'm going to stamp all of these in Versafine Onxy Black Ink. I like this ink just because it is a very dark, crisp ink. But it does take a little bit of time to dry. So I have 30 sheets of stationery here. And so I'm hoping by the time that I get to, I've wrapped right back around and gotten to the first one, it'll be dry. Because the first layer is usually your lightest layer when you're stenciling. And if your ink is still dry still wet that you stamped in, you can smear it a little bit. I didn't have that problem, but that is something that you want to be aware of. I have put this in my Tim Holtz stamping platform just so that I can stamp it in the same spot in every single one of these. In order to get it to where it hung off in a manner that looked nice, I did have to kind of bump this away from the corner. There are misty corners that you can use to help you get things in precise locations, but this was sufficient for me, just using my sticky mat to do that. So now I've created a kind of jig, I guess you could say, for myself. So I have some purple masking tape that I have put into an L, and I'm going to always place the bottom left corner of that paper in that little L there. And then I'm showing you that these stencils have etching to kind of show you what number of stencil they are. Altenew stencils are really good about that. And then I have created a hinge with more of that purple tape. And so every time if I place things in that L, and then for the most part, I may have to do some fine tuning, but I don't have to kind of reposition this every time from scratch. Like I said, I may have to do a little bit of fine tuning just to make sure it's exactly right. But this works really well to make things go a lot faster. Because like I said, I've got 30 of these to do. The flower itself has 3 layers. The leaves have 3 layers. I guess the flower has 4 because there's a center as well. So you're using 7 different colors to do this. And so it can get kind of any way that you can make things easier for yourself, the better. So right here, I am using that, I believe this is Pink Diamond. So this is the lightest of the pinks I have. And it's so light. When I first started to stencil, I was like, man, this is too light. Like it looks like I'm doing nothing. But when I lifted that stencil, it was perfect. I am using my glass board here and the magnets that I purchased with it just to help kind of hold things in place. I don't have any pixie tape or not pixie tape, pixie spray or any kind of adhesive on the back of these stencils. And so I do kind of run the risk of it kind of shifting and moving around. So I finished with Pink Diamond. I moved on to the second layer. And again, I've done that hill hinge method. I've placed everything in that left little L corner that I created. And I've taped that stencil into place so that I can just flip that up and put a new piece of cardstock into that L shape and stencil. Like I said, I may have to do a little bit of fine tuning, but it's better than having to start from scratch. These first 2 layers were really easy to figure out how they went. And this one is the Pinkalicious. This is the second color that I chose. And I lost my train of thought is what happened there, folks. That is what happened. Oh, the third layer of this flower was kind of difficult for me to figure out how it went. So I definitely did need to reference the layering guide for that. And that's another reason why I'm very grateful that Altenew has these layering guides and kind of instruction sheets. This is the third layer. This is the one that I said was kind of difficult for me to figure out how it went. I kind of spun it around forever and then was like, goober, use the instruction guide. This is the Razzleberry, which is a beautiful, vibrant, like magenta, really pretty. And if you look, you can see the one that's finished. You can see the one that has the first layer and then the second layer. And just look how much like more dimension you get. It's so beautiful. Like it's very simple and it's very sketchy, but it still looks very dimensional. It's so pretty. I just love these kind of sets from Altenew. I am not a colorist. I know there are people that enjoy coloring. That is not something that I gravitate toward. I gravitate towards stencils. And so when I can get beautiful color variation and depth just by using a stencil, I'm totally here for that. So this is the third layer on the flowers itself. There is 2 layers that actually do the center of this flower. But we'll get to that in a minute. So that's the first layer, and that's with the flower complete, except for the center. So I'm going to do this. How I mass produce is I do all of the same layer all at the same time. So that helps things go a lot faster. So I would do all of the stamping first. Then I would go and do all of the first layer of the flower next. Then all of the second layer, all of the third layer. And I would finish that before I would move on to a different layer. This is the kind of the stamens, I believe is what it is, on those flowers. And that is done in the orange cream. And just that little bit, it's kind of hard to see in the video, but just that little bit of color added a lot to this image. It's amazing to me how something so small can add so much to it. So anyway, I'm going to finish off these flower centers with this orange cream, and then I'm going to move on to the leaves. For the first layer of the leaves, again repeating that same L and hinge method. The first layer of the leaves is done in Minty Mint, and the second layer will be done in Misty Shore? Minty Mint? Sweet Leaf, my bad. The second layer will be done in Sweet Leaf, and the final layer is Lagoon, which is like a really deep aqua color. It's really pretty. So I'm going to, I do all of the same layer for all of the stamped images, and then move on to the next layer. So this is the first layer. This is the Minty Mint. And this is the second layer. This is the Sweet Leaf. And this layer actually does part of the floral center. You could absolutely have done this floral center in a different color than the greenery, which if I was not mass producing, I would have done. But again, one of the things that I like to do when I'm mass producing is keep it simple. So if I don't have to pull out another ink and another blending brush, I'm not gonna. So this is the Minty Mint, and then this is the second layer. My bad. I'm sorry. This is the second layer. So this is the Sweet Leaf, and this is what does a part of that floral center. And I'm just going to line this up, ink blend it, and move on to the third layer. I actually did these little purple flowers first before I moved on to the final layer of the leaves. And this is done in the Hydrangea ink. I am not entirely sure if these bottom purple flowers are actually supposed to go right here. I kind of have a sneaky suspicion that they aren't. But they just kind of carry over purple, and so I just kind of ran with it. But these little purple flowers only have one layer. If you wanted to, you could go back through and with a colored pencil or a Copic marker, you could add in some more detail or depth to those. But again, that would be something I would do if I was just making one card or maybe two, not 30. All right, so now we will move on to the third layer. This is the third layer, and this is the Lagoon ink. This is that dark aqua that I was telling you about. This does some dimension around the center of the flower, and it does some more layers to the leaves. This is all one stencil, so there's no mixing of stencils, or to where one stencil covers multiple different areas of a flower or an image. This is just all one stencil that colors all one thing, so you don't have to kind of mask anything off. I did end up getting some ink where I didn't want it, and I'll show you how I fixed that in a minute. But this is it. So this is the stationery set. If you wanted to, like I said, you could add more detail with colored pencils or white highlights or sparkle pens. You could spray it with a pixie spray, or not a pixie spray, but a glitter spray, if you wanted to add more things to it. So on the spots where I did get ink where I didn't want it, I end up taking a mono sand eraser to it. The gray side has the actual sand in it, and the other side, I just kind of, I don't know if this really makes any difference. I really don't. But I use it to kind of, in my mind, smooth out the paper from where I've roughened it trying to get rid of that ink. So I just scrub over that until it's gone, or until it's very hard to discern. And then I take that white eraser and go over it again. And that really does help cover up any boo-boos. I recommend highly, if you don't have one of these in your stash, to get one. They're very inexpensive. They last a very long time, and they do cover up many a sin. So I did go through and on all of them just find ones where I maybe got a little wild and with my ink blending, and corrected it. So that is it for me. I appreciate you spending time with me. There will be another video up with the card that goes with this set. So we will see you very soon. Bye.